Welcome, dear ones. I'm really grateful to be here with you live today, given that this broadcast was due to happen last week when the power cutoffs meant that I couldn't broadcast for you. So let's take this opportunity for the gift that it is and just spend a moment together, just finding this moment. So wherever you're sitting, wherever you're listening to this from or watching it from, just bring your attention into the felt sense of your body here on the chair, your feet on the floor. Just bring your awareness into the direct sensations of this moment. And feeling each inhale for the gift that it is. Receiving the life-giving oxygen that miraculously arrives without you having to do anything or earn anything or prove anything or get rid of anything. And feel your own exhale as an invitation just to relax and be here. Each breath cycle calling you in and down into your direct experience and reminding us all that we are all being lived and breathed by a grace, by a mystery that has our backs, that is love, that is power, that is peace, and that it always welcomes us just to come home to that recognition in any moment of our life. So I'm sure most of you are aware of the fires that have been ravaging the state of California where I live. And I'm sure, like anybody, you have been feeling that in your heart, noticing, as we all do, how it is when so many people have to evacuate their homes or lose their homes or are just put in very difficult circumstances. And it's pretty obvious that wherever you are on the planet, we are living in wild, unpredictable, uncertain times. And that our life as we know it, can turn on a dime. And it can happen to us in personal ways where we might receive a difficult health diagnosis or experience an unexpected betrayal in a friendship with someone we thought we could trust, or some wind of fate seemingly blows everything into an unexpected direction. So I want to talk today about how do we work with this, with these teachings on grace and ego relaxation. How do we not only stay calm amidst the chaos and respond with wisdom, but how furthermore can we even harness such challenging, unpredictable forces that appear in our lives, both personally and also collectively, as invitations to really evolve, to become more graceful, beautiful, noble human beings in life, in our world? Well, these are obviously questions that I have been dealing with firsthand and noticing how it's been for me to be living for 5 days with no power, because in the Bay Area, and particularly Marin and the North Bay where I live, they shut down the power completely as a preventative measure to prevent the escalation of wildfires. And so many of us were living without a fridge, being able to be kept, electricity, heating, access to a computer, Wi-Fi. And obviously it's eye-opening to see how used to all of these conveniences that we all in the modern world, the Western world, have access to and take for granted, and how much this upends how we know how to live when they're not available. I saw a lot of interesting things happening. I saw a lot of people just getting very upset and more reactive and frustrated. But the truth of the matter is, in situations that are unpredictable, what's really asked of us is to open to those situations somehow and to to apply our intelligence and our gifts and our creativity, to evolve out of self-centeredness and to collaborate where we can and find creative new solutions, and also to harness even the possibility that we have to let go of certain things for a while as a spiritual gift, to take a little more time for ourselves just to be. But often I'm asked the question, your teachings on grace and ego relaxation sound so beautiful, but how practical are they really when push comes to shove? Well, I would argue very passionately that I'm a very practical, down-to-earth person, but I also happen to be an unapologetic, feminine mystic, full throttle. And in my own experience, there isn't a division between what seems on the surface to be very lofty and very esoteric and what helps us the most. But in order to really understand this, we have to see that all authentic spiritual teachings give us something very, very important. Number one, an authentic spiritual teaching is going to give us a kind of orientation to life that helps us to open and expand and connect rather than contract and close. An authentic spiritual teaching gives us principles to lean into, to remember, that become like pillars within us that help us to navigate with more wisdom and clarity. But it also, spiritual teachings give us practices, practical how-tos to rise into challenges and to work with them and to let those challenges even grow us to become more evolved and, better human beings. But all of this gives us then access, these teachings, these principles, this orientation, fundamentally, it gives us access to our essential qualities, these luminous qualities of our true nature, like real love, real strength, real courage, real compassion, real peace, real joy, independent of the circumstances on the outside of our life. This is where the gold really is. This is why spiritual truth is so important, because without this kind of access, we really don't have much resource to then, actually find a different way to be when that which we know and that which we've relied on is upended. So it's up to us all not only to engage spiritual practices like the ego relaxation or anything that I share with you, or that you might have explored in your many years of spiritual inquiry so far, to really help you to gain that access that you need so that you can apply all of this into your life. And I don't just mean apply it personally. We all know we need to do that. We all know, I'm sure you know, that we need to apply the insights, the understanding, the clarity that we receive from our meditation and inquiry and prayer practice, and apply that to our personal relationships, to the conflicts that we might get into from time to time with one another, to the situations that appear in our business life, in our family life, with our health. This is all important and helps us to be wiser, more graceful as we respond to personal challenges. And life absolutely includes that. But it also helps us to respond more wisely and gracefully to collective challenges. And I've been asked a lot this week, how can all your work really help with the really big, scary, difficult things like climate change? And of course, everybody that I'm speaking to at the moment is concerned about it. It's in our face, wherever you live on the planet. I don't think there's really any denying anymore that, we are now starting to experience some of the really difficult, unpredictable impacts of global warming upon our world, and that none of us really know what's going to happen next. I think it's important to remember that this world has always been a world of uncertainty, and the truth is that none of us ever know what's going to happen next. However, when uncertainty is really in our face, when we're dealing with things that scare us, what often tends to happen in people who don't have much access to their essential true nature, don't have much access to the ground of grace, tend to devolve And I think that's partly why we've been seeing such an escalation of very egocentric, difficult behavior from our leaders sometimes, from people en masse, descending and devolving into racial hatred, us versus them mentalities, really painful kinds of behavior that is not us being our noble, graceful best. Well, I'm sure if you're honest with yourself, how when we're scared, we all tend to devolve into our more primitive self. We all tend to devolve back into our more egocentric kind of identity. This happens also when we're in really stressful situations. We resolve to our default patterns in those circumstances. And so what's really needed in times of intensity and chaos is to engage our spiritual practices and the principles more, not less. They're very practical if you practice them. So I like to think of it as if we're strengthening our spiritual muscles. We're strengthening our grace muscles. How do we do that? Well, firstly, we have to put our attention on that within us, which is never rocked and doesn't change. This is a line of inquiry that I've given to some of my ongoing students in times where they've been dealing with wildfires and being displaced and really challenging things that are scary and hard to really contain. And so it is very helpful when we keep bringing our attention back to that question: what within you is never rocked and doesn't change? We might not be able to answer that conceptually, but we can lean our heart, lean our mind, lean our awareness into that which is prior to everything that we've created for ourselves, and find rest in that depth, find love in that depth, find the return of peace in that place. That is the beginning, to ground ourselves there. It's also important to look at what muscles that we have going on that are overdeveloped, that have been developed egoically. Everybody has this because our ego was formed in those first 5 years of life around the workarounds that we all developed to get through our childhood. But often we don't see that we're walking around in an adult body, but that our consciousness is really immature. It's that of a child. So whenever we're reacting out of instinct, or we're reacting out of anxiety and we're trying from our ego to get things done because we're anxious, or we're pushing harder because something scares us or we're not sure how it's going to work out, those are examples of where we might have overdeveloped muscles, egoically speaking. And so to really evolve means to really be interested and non-judgmental, curious about the places where there really is an invitation for you to relax out of certain habits and tendencies. And that may likely feel like a place where you're young. And of course, our true nature doesn't ever have an age. So if ever you ask yourself the question, how old do I feel in this pattern, in this habit, or in this state? And if your answer is anything other than no age, I'm just in the present moment, then that tells you that there's a little immature spot, a place where there's a little somebody who's trying to figure it out but can't, and is just sort of running a bunch of strategies. That's what we need to relax. And that's not an activity of passivity, quite the contrary. It takes a certain kind of precision in your practice of ego relaxation to see where that ego relaxation really wants to be applied for you. What really prevents you from being spiritually mature, from staying grounded in the present moment, staying grounded in the fact that you are in and part of something, a force that is so much deeper and more powerful even than climate change. And that force has your back, has our back, has all of it, is holding it all. So we want to ground more deeply in what within us is never rocked and doesn't change. Be curious and compassionate, but practice with more precision into those places where we're still caught in the consciousness of a little one, and learn to relax into that. And we also might want to find some kind of practice, some kind of quick go-to that we can engage on the spot in a stressful situation, like a line of inquiry that you might find in my book. And I'm very practical. In my book, The Way of Grace, I have given so many practical how-tos in each of the 16 chapters. And not only that, but so many little meditations and prayers that I really wrote and put in that book in the hope that people like you would use them. So my invitation for you, even if you've read the book, which I hope you have, and if you haven't, I encourage you to, because I think you'll love it, is just to find one practice in this month, just one line of inquiry or one meditation that for you most seems to address that spot in you where you know you're not as grounded or as graceful as you'd like to be. Instead of judging yourself about that or just trying harder to bypass it, which is not what I'm recommending, instead, find the practice that seems to most address what it is that you really need at this time. To stay grounded, to stay calm, to stay present, to open to uncertainty and even intensity. Not as a problem, not with panic, not even with resistance, but to just embrace the mystery of what is and to let it evolve you. One of my earlier teachers said to me many years ago, there's nothing like working with our limitations that grows us the most, humanizes us the most. And I've come to see over the years that he was absolutely right. It's often when we learn, even in difficult times, to harness and embrace those very challenges that seem to be obstacles, that we are most grown into a whole other level. It becomes almost like a shamanic test, bringing us to another possibility, which we couldn't even have perceived really was available to us. So I'm often asked, will this be enough to turn around things like climate change? Will more of us becoming more grounded and more graceful, more awake, having more access to our essential qualities really do much practical good in a short period of time? Well, the truth is, of course, I don't know. I don't know whether really our world can be turned around, or whether this practice will really help to produce a certain effect that's tangible. But what I do know is that it does produce these Way of Grace teachings for those who engage them and practice ego relaxation into the places that are most needed in their life, seems to have the effect of helping us deal much better with whatever life brings, helping us to become less egocentric, meaning we're more capable of collaborating with other people. We're more capable of letting our gifts be freed from the tyranny of self-centeredness and ambition, and instead be utilized for noble purposes that are really about bringing benefit further forward into our world, bringing joy further forward and fulfillment further forward in our world, but helping us to come together in ways that really make us truly happy, because they make us more beautiful human beings. So, dear friends, I have a lot more to say on this, but I hope that this has inspired you to read The Way of Grace a little more substantially and to dig in a little deeper to some of the practices that seem to relate to the places where you know you're being called to grow. And so we can use this together instead of just indulging in fear, instead of getting frustrated with what we hear on the news, instead of just, trying to tough it out and convince ourselves it'll all be okay. We can actually use this to deepen our practice, to really make a vow inside ourselves that whatever life brings, we'll turn it into the path of awakening, whether those are really difficult things that have arrived into the personal plate of our life, that are asking us to let go of something, review something, learn something, develop a new part of ourselves, or whether it's collectively that somehow we just need to keep open and keep practicing and showing up. When I practice into that for myself, and particularly in the last week, what I've come back to more and more is the trust practice. And those of you who have studied with me will know just how central trust is in the whole process of surrender at every level. But one of the lines of inquiry that I give that helps us open into trust after we've worked through our limitations to trust, after we've met the parts of ourselves that get scared and that, tend to presume things will be however they were like in the past, and that our advances are justified. When I deepen into the line of inquiry, what's holding you now? And I let myself feel the holding presence, the fact of it, just like you can feel that there's a chair cradling your body, or that there's earth under your feet. You don't have to do anything to earn it or deserve it or get it. It's already here. You have to bring your awareness to it. But when we go further, and what's holding that holding? What's really holding it all? While our mind can't really fathom the answer to those questions, what happens in me, and perhaps it happens in you too, is that I'm opened to the remembrance that there are celestial forces, mysterious forces, dimensions of grace that have been holding this planet and everything and everyone within it since the beginning of time. And that this force, these forces, are so beneficent and loving, and that, that's really where the resource is. That's where we can rest. That's what we can trust in. We're not trusting in a somebody or a something. We are trusting in that with a capital T, which always is, which is love and power and peace itself. So, dear ones, I encourage you, whatever's going on in your life, wherever you are on the planet, to really immerse in that, immerse in what helps you to remember that and stay close to it and live into it with the practical challenges of your life and of our life at this time in November 2019. So I want to just end this with a prayer, and this is really my ongoing prayer. Help me stabilize in the infinite ground of grace. Open my heart to all that arises, and be grown into a deeper, wiser, more loving, responsive human being. Take me, use me, shine through me in ways that help and heal and serve and move me into wise action today. So, speaking of wise action, I want to just remind you, if you don't already know this, that I will be traveling to North Carolina next week. I'm really excited to be seeing old friends who are hosting the event for me. And there's still some opportunities if you would like to join us. It's in Asheville. There will be an evening satsang, which will be open to anybody who wants to just come and check that out. And then a 4-day retreat. And the theme of the retreat is receiving the blessings of grace. So it'd be a wonderful opportunity to really come drink deep with me in the grace that we all need to be sustained and live more beautifully in these times. And I also want to announce that I'm just about to open up applications for anybody who might live in the Bay Area and who's interested to join, especially my Marin Sangha or possibly my Sonoma Sangha. There's really only a handful of openings, so I do have an application process for this, and that I say yes to people who I think will be a good fit for this ongoing committed group that commits for a year at a time. Many people have been with me for much longer than that. And where in a community setting, we meet in person, either twice a month or once a month, and we dive deeper with these teachings. And it's very beautiful. So if you're interested in that, please email us and we'll send you the things that you need to consider your next steps. And I just send you my love and blessings and well wishes and encourage you to just relish taking the next step in your practice of the way of grace. And together, let us become the graceful, beautiful human beings our world so needs.